Hello everyone, today we are going to review the tournament TATA Steel Masters 2022 and it's the round 6 of this tournament and it's the game between Fabiano Caruana and Anish Giri. And this was like a very interesting game as both the players are very famous players. Like Fabiano Caruana was a commentator for the World Chess Championship 2021 for the chess.com's YouTube channel, and Anish Giri is a very popular chess streamer and with Gujarati's very dearest friend. So it's going to be a very interesting game between both of these players, and it's going to be a really great game. And actually it was a very really great game until a move where one of the players simply blundered a full rook, and yeah, what happened at the end of the game you can see after watching the full video. So Anish Giri is playing with the black pieces and Fabiano Caruana is playing with the white pieces. So Fabiano Caruana makes a very interesting decision by playing knight to f3 at the start. We have d5, b3 and bishop to f5, and now it is the Zuckertort opening, the main variation by bishop to b2. It may feel like it is kind of the Nimzal-Arjun variation with knight to f3, but actually it isn't. It is the Zuckertort opening, which is not that famous, but it is an opening. e6, g3, and now both the players play the normal variation of this opening. And now after pawn to a3 we have pawn to c6, and now Anish Giri has a plan of playing pawn to b5 and simply striking in the center by playing pawn to c5 and pawn to d5. But of course Fabiano isn't going to make that happen. He plays rook to e1, planning for pawn to e4 in some cases. Then we have bishop to h7, introspecting that the move pawn to e4 is going to come extremely soon, and simply moving your bishop away so that you don't lose your tempo. We have pawn to e4, knight b to d7, and for example if you take over here then we take back, and now actually white has an amazing position because of more control over the central squares and of course the e5 and the d5 square as well, along with the f5 squares. And black is really out of the game because the knight is not in the game, the queen is actually doing nothing. Also if you bring your queen on the b6 square then also it is doing nothing. So yeah, white would be simply better in this position. So after knight b to d7, so queen to a2, queen to b6, pawn to a4, and now fixing this pawn structure, but it actually creates a big weakness in white's pawn structure, which is the c2 pawn. And now Anish Giri takes advantage of it by playing rook f to c8. He's trying to play the move pawn to c5 and pawn to c4. And also we can see a good strategic and positional understanding of Anish Giri by playing to the f rook to the c8 square, not the a rook, because he understood that at some point of time the b pawn and the a pawn would probably do an exchange with this b3 pawn in order to make this a pawn a passed pawn, and that's the moment where we need our a rook over here, and that's why he played this rook. That's a really great positional understanding by Anish Giri, and at least better than me, where I can't understand even one move after the game. Yeah, sorry for me. Okay, we have rook a to c1, we have bishop to c5, and now pawn to e5. Now Anish Giri had to make a very interesting decision in the game. He didn't go for the move knight to h5, simply trapping his bishop, or after knight to f5 he could have also took the sniper bishop out of the game, but it actually won't help him that much because now knight to h4 is coming, and then probably pawn to f4 and pawn to f5. Also this bishop is going to be a big threat on this diagonal, so Anish Giri didn't make this decision of going to the f5 square and then probably pawn to g5 and the knight back on g7 square. Instead he played the move knight to e8 in order to maneuver the knight from the c7 square till the a6 and the b4 square. And we have again knight to f1, so queen to d8, knight to e3, and now knight to c7, going for the plan which we just discussed. And actually now we have the biggest mistake of the game, which actually started turning tables on the board, king to h1. This is actually a very slow move and it actually does nothing, and that's why it is like a very big mistake. And also it allows the move pawn to b5 over here. It actually isn't a good move. Instead the move rook e to d1 was the best, as now pawn to d5 b5 doesn't work because of pawn to e4, and now the bishop must retreat, and now you really don't have to worry about this a pawn being passed pawn. You can simply defend it by playing pawn to c4, and if it takes back then you have enough counter play on this b file, and black really doesn't have much to do here. But you have king to h1 and pawn to b5. We have knight to d5 anyways. Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. And now knight to b6 in this position. Now the plan is that Anish Giri wants to place knight to the a6 square and do a sort of knight attack with both of its knights, aiming on the weak points of your opponent's pawn structure. Currently the a6 pawn is under attack, so you need to play rook to a1. Now white is under extremely difficult and defensive positions, so he will need to figure out something. Bishop to e7, f4, and a queen d7. A mistake this time by Anish Giri, because again, like, this is a slow move, and even in a chess game like this one, if you make a very slow moves, then it is simply of no use. You will simply lose the game. So yeah, queen to d7 happened in the game. We have pawn to f5, e takes on f5, queen to f3, and now we have knight to c5, trying to exchange the knights. So we simply take and take, and now we have the move pawn to the d4 square. So this is a sort of dubious move by Leach's engines, but actually I don't think that it is a dubious move, because first of all, we simply strengthen the center and defend our e5 pawn. But I think according to engine, like, we are blocking our bishop. That's why it may be a bad move, but I really don't think that it is. And yeah, of course I don't know much about chess other than these players know about than me, but yeah, at least I don't think that it is like a very useful move. And after bishop comes to the h square, g6, and now we have a very interesting move, pawn to f4 by Anish Giri. Now what's the plan behind this move? Like, this move has a very deep meaning behind it. If you take the pawn here, then we have bishop to g4. Now your knight is under attack, and your knight was first defending the c4 square. So if the queen retreats wherever it wants, we take, and now you can take the rook or with the queen. It simply doesn't matter, but taking with the rook would be much better, as if you take with the queen, then after knight to f4 there is a fork, and if you come here, then after takes, you will simply use the tempo in your when we attack your queen. And after the move rook to b4, black is simply fine, and actually black is better in this position. So going behind, taking with the rook is always the best option, but then still we have this move. The rook must come to the f3 square or any other square it wants, but it must defend the bishop, and now it's simply free bishop. So now the rook must come to the b3 square to support this bishop, and now we simply take, and when he takes back, we play the move pawn to g5, blocking out the move pawn to g5 from our opponent, and instead we play that move first, and also we activate our bishop, and also we stop this bishop's big threat of playing pawn to g5, and also we make a square, the b8 square, for our rooks to come out and simply activate on the b file and simply defend against both of these white rooks, which will be in future covering up on the g file. We have pawn to g5, then we have queen to a7. The bishop takes on c8, a big blunder by Fabiano Caruana, and I really don't know why did he took the exchange, because after it takes over here, when we took the knight, it was actually exchange sacrifice by Anish Giri. Now you have an knight for a rook, but the thing is that you have an extremely fast pawn, and it can probably be a queen in the next two moves probably. And also you must now save the bishop, and you will simply waste a move in saving your bishop. So that's what happened over here. Now the bishop came on the a3 square, and now we have the move knight to c4. And till this point, now the game was fully like winning for black, as the knight had a brilliant square on the c4 square. It's like covering all the necessary squares for Anish Giri, and yeah, the rook can anyways jump to the f8 square with the help of the queen on the e7 square. There are like a lots of threats in this position, and white is simply doomed. But somehow white was able to play for some time, and after bishop to f6, rook a b1, we'll play for some moves. And yeah, Anish Giri was able to get the advantage of the move rook to e8, and now we have the move rook to the b6 square, and it is the biggest blunder of the full event, as you simply blundered an exchange, and this is a clear last game. Anish took the exchange and continued to win the game easily because of his passed pawn. And after the move rook to the e4 square, we simply resigned. Fabiano Caruana simply resigned the game at this moment, and yeah, Anish Giri just defeated the world number 3 after Ali Reza Firouz, of course. And a really great game, but the rook b6 blunder wasn't really expected by me at such a high level game, and like all the commentators were simply surprised that how can such a top level player blunder so easily. But yeah, it happens with all of us that the tournament isn't going good for us, and yeah, the only thing is that we have to come out of it, which I think that Fabiano will be easily doing. And yeah, a really great game. At least for me, I got to learn a lot of new things, and I hope that even you have learned a lot of new things from this video. And yeah, I hope that you have taken something away from this video. If you enjoyed this video, then as always, please give the channel a subscribe, and also give this video a like. Subscribe to the channel with notifications on, and I hope to see you in the next one very soon. Till then, stay tuned, have a great day, and bye.